Welcome to Epicenter, the hub of innovation in the heart of Helsinki, where ideas come to life and creativity thrives, where innovation meets community. Get ready to learn, network, and make an impact. Let's go.
All right, Epicenter Helsinki, let's make some noise. Come on. There we go. I am so shocked to see so many of you indoors right now. I was telling myself when I looked at the weather this morning, I was like, no fucking way is anyone coming. And I started to think to myself, no, Joey, you have fans who love you. They are doing. They'll come in even when it's sunny. Hey, welcome. If you don't know me, my name is Joey Bayer. I am the head of community here at Epicenter Helsinki. And we have a little bit of a tradition before every single one of our community events. And I'm looking at you, my biggest hype man in the corner here, where we take the first 10 seconds of each of our events and we absolutely go bananas. We scream, we shout, we cheers. This is to help ease everyone's tensions, make us all feel ready to learn and to grow, okay? So let's take those first 10 seconds and go crazy. Go. Come on, we can do better than that. There we go. All right. Some of you are new here, so we're gonna have to work on the screaming and the hoot and the hollering. But welcome to Epicenter Helsinki. We are a playground for local change makers who truly want to scale their own growth, the growth of their companies, but also change the local entrepreneurial ecosystem. The way that we support that is by hosting events like this, knowledge sharing events where people can come together, share ideas, network, and grow. We are a community of change makers who, like you, are looking to actually innovate with impact. We believe that true innovation lies with collaboration. And after this, what we're going to do is we're going to have as much collaborating and networking as possible. And then I promise you the sun will still be shining, so you can sit on a rock somewhere drinking a cold beer. Actually, it's often semi-warm by the time you get to the park. And then there'll be food later on. But welcome to, this should have been something else behind me the whole time. Welcome to Hired. Hired is a monthly event series that discusses the most pressing topics in today's and tomorrow's talent landscape. Hired is designed to foster conversations that matter, bringing topics bringing together industry experts, HR professionals, thought leaders, and the global talent community. Our series dives deep into a range of subjects, and so far we've covered diversified leadership. We've looked at advancing women in the global talentscape. We've talked about HR trends, and today we're super lucky to discuss the future of work and how it's so dependent on understanding Gen Z and Alpha. We have three experts in their own right who are going to guide us through this conversation. We'll start the evening with a keynote that will talk about how Generation Z and Alpha are reimagining traditional work environments, paving the way for spaces that are more innovative, inclusive, and driven by cutting-edge technology. After that, we'll sit for a panel where we'll discuss the cultural, economic, and workplace shifts that are anticipated with the emergence of Generation Alpha, the digital cohort, which is set to join forces with the super tech-savvy Gen Z. How does all that sound? Okay. My friends in the front row know what to do. I've got to get the stairs a little more pumped. Extra drink ticket for someone who screams the loudest in the back. So there we go. I know it's truly important. All right, so shall we begin? All right. So Let's begin. Our first speaker is a distinguished high school student from SYK, involved in the IB program. She is not only a student, but also an accomplished author, speechwriter, and speaker. She is a proud member of Finland's national debate team and has represented Finland on the international stage. As an ambassador, she has traveled to schools across the country, inspiring young people to understand the importance of financial freedom and investing. She recently published a short story, Ruby Red, that explores themes of multiculturalism, identity, and prejudice, aiming to spark positive social change. So please, let's give a huge round of applause to author, speechwriter, and also high school student, right? Ishioma. Please welcome. This is for you.
Thanks.
Enjoy.
Okay, hello everyone. So as said, I'm Ishioma and I'm happy to be here today. And I'm here to talk to you about how Generation Z and Alpha will be changing workspaces and how that may look like for you who are already in work life. So the very first thing that I'd like to address is the elephant in the room, which is Generation Z itself, right? So I think the first thing that might come to mind when we think about Generation Z and Alpha is skepticism, and I subscribe, or I can understand that as well because of the extent of technological development that has recently been happening. And this technological development has definitely defined our behavior in many ways and affected how we've been brought up, but it doesn't mean that the change that is to come is a bad thing. And what I'll be talking about today is about how this change is not necessarily what you might expect. So the first thing I want to discuss is artificial intelligence, and I'm sure you all have been hearing a lot about it recently, but it applies especially to Generation Z and Alpha, right? Because a lot of us use it in school environments daily. And I think there's a general concern about the creativity of this new generation because it seems like we don't need to be able to create our own ideas anymore because we can just rely on, ChatGPT to generate content for us. And this can definitely be a threat to work life, especially in entrepreneurship and business, where you need to be engaging in ideation. But I think that the reality is that we are going to be the most creative generation of them all. And this is because if we want to be able to earn a living and get paid as creatives, then we need to be able to create content and ideas that are more original than what ChatGPT can provide because it's available for everyone for free. So I think what this means is that we're going to be having individuals who are more creative than ever because in order to make a living, we have to push past the generalized content that we're seeing already. And an example I have of this is of myself, right? I've represented Finland in debating worlds last year, and we created arguments ourselves, but then we went on ChatGPT actually, because we know that all the teams have access to ChatGPT. So if they're looking at arguments from there, we need to be able to refute them. So we went on there and we looked at them, and then we saw how we can argue against those arguments that we saw on there. So in these ways, generative AI is really a tool for us to become more creative. And I think in summary, what this means is that you should be able to expect creativity and innovation from us in workspaces in the future. Another thing I have to discuss is passion. And more than ever, people are really pursuing careers in the fields of interests or in the fields that they are interested in because I think the narratives are changing. Before it might have been for older generations, get educated and get a job. But now the narrative that I was brought up with in society is, follow your dreams and do what you love. And I recognize that this may be idealistic, but it means that Gen Z is going to be, or Gen Z is quite intolerant towards doing things that they're not interested in. And this may seem like a negative, but I think it's also a positive, because that means that most people of our generation are going to be engaged in jobs that they're actually interested in, that they're actually passionate about, which means that we're more likely going to have more encouraged workers, which can obviously then lead to growth. And in the best case scenario, this looks like a whole new generation of people entering, work life with zeal and passion to commit to what they're doing. Then I have some short points to say about how you may see this in working culture concretely. So first of all, I believe that Gen Z is more globalized than maybe any other generation, and Gen Alpha as well. Obviously, we all have access to our phones. We're all engaged with the world globally, but we have been brought up watching people online. So this means that what you can expect from us is maybe a more international-minded and orientated perspective, or even expansion into larger markets in the future. Then leadership. I think Gen Z has also kind of a weird dynamic with authority. I think it's because we've been brought up with all the options and resources open to us. So maybe there's less of a need to see authority as an essential thing. And I think how this translates into the workspace is adaptations to workplace hierarchy. There will still be leadership, of course, but maybe the lines are more blurred. So I think in the future we'll be seeing more collaboration between different hierarchical classes in the workspace. And then finally, about marketing, I believe that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are going to be expert marketers, expert salesmen, purely based on the fact that we're being advertised to every day. Every time we open our social media apps, we ourselves are products, and also we are being advertised to all the time. So I think purely for that reason, we can be able to utilize this knowledge to our advantage. Also, all of us know how to brand ourselves. All of us have an Instagram account where we may post things. So all of us already have concepts about branding and networking that we don't need to necessarily be taught later on. So maybe for some of you guys, these may be things that you were brought up with during your career and work life. But for us, these are things that come quite natural already. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. My final words of encouragement to you all would be to be open to the new changes that are coming, because I think they're really exciting. And I think if we're open to each other, we can learn from each other and also grow in ways that enable new heights in business.
Let's give a huge round of applause to Ishioma. Thank you so much. Thank you. The future is bright, huh? I could not have done that in high school. All right. Ready? Okay. Let's keep it going. So today, I want to take a time to look into how the youngest generation are not just adapting to, but fundamentally transforming our workspaces, as Ishioma has just mentioned. With over 2 billion Gen Alphas beginning to make their mark, and Gen Z currently rapidly reshaping expectation with their demand for flexibility, inclusivity, and technology-driven environments, our panel is going to explore strategies for business business to harness during this dynamic shift. So our first panelist is the founder of a Gen Z expert agency that helps companies succeed within the young consumer demographic by bringing Gen Z on as advisors. As a strategist specializing in Gen Z, she helps companies strengthen their competitiveness among the new generation. She has worked with frontline consumer brands such as Oreo, Samsung, Rovio, Sonoma, Valio, Luminen, Marimekko, and Warner Music. Let's please give a huge hand to Aya, who is the CEO and founder of Benjury.
Okay, thank you.
Our next panelist's career expands over 30 years, where he has worked for companies like Citibank, Capman, Deloitte, Baseware, and EY, during which he has gained great experience in capital market transactions, value-creating strategies, and growth. Currently, he works for Tableau Executive Search and serves on many growth companies' boards. He is also an entrepreneur in residence at Excel KKR, a Silicon Valley-based private equity firm investing in enterprise software. He has self-coined himself a Chief Curiosity Officer, and I think that's a great title. So please welcome Matti to the stage, who is a senior partner at Tableau Finland. Okay, so I kind of want to break the panel into a few sections, and I think that these sections are going to highlight trends that I've read about with respect to how the waves of change are shaping the future of the workspace. So each section will take about 5 minutes or so, and we'll explore how these shifts can be managed. So for Gen Z, as Ishioma mentioned, social movements like Black Lives Matter and #MeToo highlighted the importance of diversity and inclusion as they entered the workforce. Similarly, Gen Alpha is deeply engaged with global issues. Support for Ukraine, pro-Palestine, pro-Israel is evidenced by events like this past Eurovision and activism on campuses worldwide, including here in the University of Helsinki. Lots of research has shown that 70% of young consumers prioritize a company's commitment to social and environmental causes, not only affecting their purchasing decision, but their employment choices as well. So simply put, Gen Z and Alpha will not work for an employer that does not align with their values on critical social issues. So considering how important social causes are to Gen Z and Alpha, how should companies be talking about their values?
Ladies first.
Good question. Thank you. I think, firstly, whatever you talk, you shouldn't just talk. You have to walk the talk. So it is pretty important that if you are telling something, if you are promising something, it is real. It is not just chit chat, because they can smell it. They really find out everything. So yeah, it has to be truth. And then again, how they should talk about it, I always recommend to ask from your audience, what can they see, what is interesting, what do they would like to hear and see. And based on that, then you can create your communication. But anyways, it has to be truth, not anything what is fake.
Yeah, I mean, we all know about performative actions with regard to social causes, but Matti, do you want to add something there?
Well, since I'm representing, I guess, a generation old.
Not intentional.
Yeah, well, mature, experienced, and all that good stuff. I would, the first thing that comes to my mind is that you cannot be opportunistic. So I fully agree in the sense that you have to sort of read the market, but not sort of read it so that you sort of take everything granted that is sort of being offered to you. And I think that's where I think we're going to be hopefully even disagreeing on some of the stuff on Generation G and Generation Alpha in terms of my view is that we're going to see interesting phenomena coming about in terms of blending the receiving large organizations that will be benefiting from getting these bright, brilliant Generation G and Alpha. They will bend, they will welcome them, but also the Generation G and Alpha need to bend and want to be accepted. So it cannot be a one-way street only.
Well, we'll talk about collaboration a little bit later because I think that that's a huge portion of this topic as well. But it's sort of sticking on this with regard to social causes and how companies should be talking about their values. Have you, either of you, noticed anything with regard to ways that companies have integrated this message, right, of these deep values, right? How have they done this in their everyday operations? And can you talk about the ones that have done that successfully?
Yeah, we have been working with several clients in that matter. That we have been. We had the Gen Z advisory boards, and we asked those Gen Zers which messages you really are interested of, and how should the company like communicate the values. And what I've been seeing is that usually the social justice is very important and interesting, but anyways, they don't want any big boss and the executives tell about it. They want to go and ask from their entry-level personnel, how do you see it? How does this shows up in your everyday life and work in this company? So that's one point. And those companies who have done it, they have got some good grades from those advisors.
Do you know any that have really sort of, tapped into the market of so that it's not a performative pride flag, during June that everyone can kind of see through? Are there companies that are truly aligned with what Gen Z and Alpha are looking for that you would know? If you don't, that's okay. But
yeah, well, actually, I know one company that I've been working with. They maybe realized that they haven't utilized that. They have very much like a different diverse employees, and they should benefit that resource more. Like Posti, who has I don't know how many different nationalities working for them, and really in different kind of positions. So I can recall that case that these young people were like, this is interesting. Why don't you interview all those people? And we would like to hear how they describe the values.
well, let's shift then to expectations and security, because there's this theory called the fourth turning theory that sort of says that cultures cycle every 20 years or so, which shape generational values and traits. So Gen Alpha has been influenced by major events like several recessions, climate change, the Trump presidency, Brexit, COVID-19, steering them towards seeking structure, belonging, and community. I think Ishioma mentioned that as well. Unlike their millennial parents, right, who distrusted institutions far and large, more so. Meanwhile, several surveys indicate that Gen Z prioritize job security even above salary, and craving stability amidst economic fluctuation. So both generations clearly are valuing stability in their professional lives, right? So how can organizations, because we know that this sort of shifted with millennials entering the market and changing jobs every sort of 2 years or so, and it looks like Gen Z and Alpha are looking for more sort of long-term stability. So how can organizations adapt their HR and financial policies, right, to offer this kind of stability that Gen Z and Alpha are looking for? Matti.
Well, I think as a headhunter, clearly, many, or I would claim that none of the candidates that we deal with would be still Generation Z or Alpha. Alpha, definitely not. I think that the toughest topic in terms of communicating well, even for the previous generations, has been purpose. And to me, being fluent in terms of coming up with the communication and the identity and the purpose is probably, it will carry over many of the other even mega trends. I think if I look at, what is expected of an executive from a executive search consultant's point of view, there's a lot of discussion about sustainability, a lot of discussion about digitalization, now AI, but at the fundamental level there, I think those that can communicate well the purpose probably is even more important, and that's a tough call, and because purpose is very difficult to measure. I think it's something that, and I think it should actually be left a little bit undefined, and it should be left so that the listener can formulate its own view of the purpose that has been tried to be communicated. So
I mean, we'll talk about communication and transparency a little bit later, but I do want to, highlight that this need for security is something that, when corporations now are quite set for people to leave every 2 years or so, right? They've built this into their culture and their structure. If we're saying that this is going to change now, right? How do organizations and companies go back, in time when people stayed 15, 20 years in a job? How do they change their policies? What should they
Yeah.
should they be looking at this currently?
I think one option is communities. Like communities are something that these young people are urging, because when you have most of your social relations like they have not in real life, and everything is possible, the whole world is under your fingertips, and everything, you can do everything, just choose. And it is not, you don't have the founders rules, so you got scared. What should I do? How should I choose? Too many options. So they are really looking for communities where they can belong. So creating community and communities inside the organization, it could be one answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think one path for growth or for stability would be career development, right? I think that's a path forward. I think the reason why, let's say, millennials kind of took this sort of lattice growth was that they were stagnant or they were able to sort of job title hop, right? And go from one company, get another title, and then that's how they sort of increase their salaries over time. So with this need for stability, there is going to come a question of career development, right? If I'm staying in an organization for 20 plus years, how do I grow my career? So LinkedIn Global Trends reports that career progression isn't just a benefit, but a fundamental expectation, right, of job seekers today, especially from the younger generation. So how should companies start to rethink this? I think rethink career development to better align with the aspirations of a younger generation. I mean, I think this is something that you know, right? If we're representing Generation Old, as you said, what was that process like, and should we go back maybe to that?
I think the maybe we should even sort of challenge the concept of career. Most likely an alpha generation should not be thinking about a career the same way that I was looking at my career coming out of the Helsinki School of Economics. And I think that's where I think there will be winners and losers, in a sense that who can present a career in a manner that fits the purpose for the Gen Alpha. Let's use that as an example. So I think in many ways, thinking about being here in the panel, I think there's a lot of things that we might even or we might need to challenge. And I think those institutions are like, let's take an example, car. For Generation Alpha, a car is going to be a very different animal than it was for me. I wanted to be 18 years old to get my driver's license. But God, these alpha persons probably, it's not an issue. It's not something that they're looking forward to. The same with, what's the institution of a school? Let's go 10 years forward, which will be still relevant for Alpha, is graduation, is that going to be a huge milestone, or getting accepted to the university? So I think there's going to be, also other institutions that need to be challenged besides the corporate or the work environment.
Do you see any sort of shifts with companies that you're working on that are looking for more career advancement? We look at AI, right? That I mean, we'll talk about upskilling a little bit later and sort of cross collaborations. But is there a thought process going on to sort of say, hey, this is something that we should be prepared for, sort of longevity and long-term career growth?
Well, I certainly know that the Gen Z, they are very patient towards their career development, and it might be an issue because I've heard like a job related discussions if someone is telling that usually it takes 5 years and then you can have a promotion, and it doesn't work. It doesn't sound very appealing for Gen Z. So I don't know what kind of solutions, new innovations different companies have, but I was thinking this issue, and I came up one idea. Maybe if we just add some more job titles, because they want to have new job title basically in every year or something. So we just create more titles. Maybe it would be helpful that you can, have something new when you feel that you should have a promotion, but it doesn't have to mean that you become an executive or have more responsibility, but you have different description in your LinkedIn, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to maybe, well, this will all unfold, right, to see if it's just performative titles or actual demand for wanting more. But let's shift, because I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. I could talk about that part for a little while longer, but communication and transparency is also just super important, right? So navigating workplace communication is already a bit of a balancing act. Gallup has said that Gen Z and Alpha are all about quick digital first interactions, while millennials, boomers are usually stick to more face-to-face chats. So this major shift is we're seeing transformation in how teams will communicate, right, and connect. So understanding and adapting to these preferences is key to keeping everyone on the same page. So given diverse communication styles and preferences, how can the bridge be, the gap, between the digital first and traditional communication style to ensure that everyone is on the same page? Meaning, are you going to get a performance review via Slack? Probably not, right? But is that method a bit more preferred? And what are you seeing? Or
I think many companies, they already have that pressure because so many people are still remote working. So maybe they have new processes and ways of working. But yeah, it is the fact. They don't want to, maybe call you, and they would like to have this, like a more like possibilities to decide where to work, when to work, and maybe even that is an issue. That are we online at the same time? Should we all be online like from 9 to 5, or is it possible you do some work during the night and so on? But if I have some kind of examples, well, maybe not anything groundbreaking. Slack and speed communication platforms, I think those are like preferred. How about you, Matti?
I would say that if we talk about sort of communication in the corporate world, let's call it that, I think the what I was earlier referring to, sort of compromising or bending, I think the benefits of technology will be so great even for the previous generations that I think the future of work will look more like the one that generation Z and Alpha would be comfortable with than the previous. So I think communication is not going to be the big issue. I would, I think there will be other things that the clash could be greater.
So before we turn it to the audience, I just have one question. So very soon we're going to have 5 different generations working in the same workspace or workplace. This is going to bring a unique perspectives and experience, right? This can be a source of huge innovation and, like you just mentioned, maybe some potential conflict. I just read an article in Forbes that highlighted how reverse mentoring can help bridge the gap between generations, enhancing digital skills across the board. So companies already like Accenture, Target, Cisco, General Electric, United Healthcare, they have seen true and powerful impacts on culture and innovation from reverse mentoring. So I'll ask this in 2 parts. And Matti, you have 30 plus experience, right? I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes. What do you think are the most effective ways to encourage understanding and cooperation between all of these, different groups?
My sort of common and the one that I'm going to stick to my answer, almost anything you have said is just show curiosity. I mean, be interested in how, what is important. Ask questions. I think it's not more complicated than that. I think it's just leaving that thought that you care. That's probably if and I'm a walking example in a sense that I even call myself, as you introduced me, to Chief Curiosity Officer. I mean, that's my way of sort of being exposed, being sort of humble, and genuinely interested in stuff.
And let's talk about reverse mentoring, right? And upskilling programs that might be integrated into a company's learning culture. What do you think those will look like moving forward? And do we truly see the value in that?
Of a
Reverse mentoring, yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite subject because it's basically the business idea of my company. I see it highly valuable. Yeah. For example, Gucci, they had this shadow committee. The executives, they had their own advisories from the young employees, and they look what the brand has become, how much growth they have had in 10 years. So I believe in mentoring this way, that these younger generations, they can really teach us, and they can make us see things differently, but not to forget, but it's always working like in the other ways as well, because those young people, when they enter a work life, they don't have the skills, and they don't have the all that experience. So of course they need help as well.
Well, they'll certainly have the technological skills, right?
Yeah.
That could definitely go along with this idea that reverse mentoring. I mean, even I just turned 40, and sometimes I'm like, man, what music is this? Or like, how do I use this? And I'm like, crap, when does that happen? When do you stop, being as tech savvy as you might think? And with, as Ishoma mentioned, with the adaptation of AI and generative tools and that, I think that this is going to only, I don't know what that is. I guess that was telling me.
Yeah, just shut up.
that was telling me it's time for Q&A. But let's give that was actually when we needed to go to Q&A. So let's give a huge round of applause. My colleague. I've never seen that happen before. My colleague is going to walk around with the microphone. So if you have a question, please make sure the mic is there, because we won't hear you on the camera otherwise.
Is this on? Oh, good. Hey, so it's actually a question for both of you. Now, I'm just about Gen Z, so I'm 25. This is a question really that kind of revolves around our generation in the way of people taking us seriously. So, from a senior perspective in a company, I've come across a lot of the time people from other generations, not all, but some, kind of don't really take us seriously in leadership position. So what I want to know is, do you think this is a Gen Z problem, or is this actually the problem of people that are older?
Well, to a certain extent, I would say that it's also it's a justified worry, because I think in many ways there is a correlation in terms of how long have you done things, and how many things in a corporate world that you've seen. So there is a benefit for having been around and done it a few times. So I think one should tolerate a certain amount of let's call it a lack of trust in terms of not necessarily related to an individual, but the length of experience and the kind of things that one has learned about that particular role or position. So I think you have to sort of look at it a little bit and respect the fact that somebody might not be giving you the full benefit of sort of considering you a peer CEO discussion partner, for instance. But whether that's something that will dramatically change, I don't believe so. I think there will be a function of years put in to work, which will sort of build character. It will build, experience is quite important.
But that approach is also what's led to a boom in entrepreneurialism.
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking. The way you can work around it, you can just found your own company. You can be a CEO or whatever you want.
Yeah, it was that bit of resistance to sort of seeing a younger generation as a leader is what sort of made entrepreneurialism rise.
Yeah, but there again, one should not forget that there you will meet the same kind of suspicion in terms of if you talk to investors, for instance, they will look at you and say, you've done this for a year, you want me to give you 5 million? Sometimes that is sad, because I think that 1 year could perfectly be enough. But I think the typical answer is that show me your credentials.
Yeah, and then you can just uh, have a senior advisor like Matti on your side, so you get some more credibility then.
Zuckerberg was 20, right?
Yeah.
We have another question up front.
Hi, I'm Isabella, and I have too many comments, and I'll try not to keep my frustrations from some of these things inside. But kind of going a little bit on this would be kind of how do you, for example, I'm our Gen Z only employee at our company. I am the youngest one full time. Rest being much older than I am. For example, trying to, for example, develop our DEI strategy at work and develop more inclusive environment for those values that I believe in and that I know in theory the rest of our company does as well and kind of does say. But how do I, for example, could I, like you said, reverse mentoring, how do I then present that to our older generation company members of basically how can Gen Z and Gen Alpha kind of enter a workforce and show that they can give their insights and give their personalities also within a company for to give that to reverse mentor or to expand one's own company, for example, like a youth board advisories that you have in your company, but how does one kind of go into a company that they're working at and broaden that conversation, that collaboration between different generations? Thank you.
Again, I'm generation old, but I would say, trust me, they will appreciate, they will listen, they will sort of take you and your ideas very seriously, but it needs probably it needs time. If you're forcing it and you're bright and you have ideas, and if you're forcing it on them, in a fashion or in a format that is not something that they can take automatically. So it's education, it's learning, it's talking, but I would say please have some patience. Things will happen. I think you will see that there's not many things that will not take place that make sense, but the world just isn't there. Even if Generation Alpha wants it now, it's not gonna be there now. Believe me. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be even there soon enough that you feel that my voice was heard and my thoughts were appreciated. But it might not be there exactly the way you wanted and in a time frame that you wanted.
I think patient and baby steps could advise. But then you had so great question. Why don't you take that question and ask it from there, from your boss, and ask advice that I have this kind of, wish or urge, and how could I make it happen? So kindly ask advice. I think you will get some answers, and certainly they then know that you have this kind of ambition.
And maybe one piece of advice, again coming from generation old, is that it's not unacceptable, and it actually be the other way around, that you have to sell your ideas. You have to be patient and passionate about and sell your ideas. You have to sort of put in the work.
Yeah, but anyways, if you have that kind of like ambition, I think it tells about your commitment towards the company. So I think they should value it. So go for it.
I think persistence is key with any sort of type of change, and not sort of taking the first no is always a great approach. And sometimes you have to ruffle feathers. I've done that my entire career. We have time for one more question, if there is anyone. If not, we'll give a huge round of applause to.
So, just maybe I should just add a couple of questions or statement, if you like. As a living, as most of you here might probably know, a father to Gen Z, the discussion we used to have is almost what I might call, or what some of you have touched already here, which is collaborative, being able to be open to ideas. Because what I've got to realize is that young people can be taught almost everything, and they can learn almost everything, but except experience. And that was what I was having a discussion, I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago with my daughter. So I told her, you can, be smart, you have all these ideas and everything, but one thing you don't have is experience. And it's only time that we teach you that. I think we as parents also, we shouldn't just say, anything goes kind of culture. The idea that, the young people, they have, all these technologies and new things coming into their life, it's not a bad thing. The only thing is that we have to give them that sort of platform to be explorative, to explore, right? To listen to them, to encourage them, and most importantly, share our experiences with them. In that way, I think our world and their world will be better. I think that's my own way of just looking at this. So thanks.
I think with any topic like this, there's always going to be varying opinions, and that's what's great, right? It's about bringing people together to talk in a safe space about how they feel with regard to anything, and we know that for probably the better, Gen Z and Alpha are very vocal about societal issues, and hopefully will make the world a better place. So let's give a huge round of applause to Aya and Mate for joining us today. Thank you so much. I'm going to stay on stage for a little while just to brag a little bit more about events that we have going on for the rest of the month. So please stay with me for 2 more minutes. I know that we want to get to networking, and there will be pizza as well in the back behind the stairs. So time to get to know each other and to eat some more food. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we're a community, we're a playground. We can't do this without you. So thank you all again for being here on a super sunny day. So give yourselves a huge round of applause for that. Okay, so on May 22nd, we're going to do our 4th installment of our AI Surge series. This is called Accelerating Growth. Here we're going to unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence to revolutionize your operations, supercharge efficiency, and skyrocket sales. This event is your gateway to transforming mundane tasks into engines of growth using the power of AI. Now again, all of these events are free and open to the public. On May 27th, we're going to host our 4th event in the Sustainable Solutions series, Food Tech Consumer Trends in Consumer-Driven Trends in Sustainability. This is going to explore pivotal trends at the intersection of food technology and consumer behavior driving sustainable practices. This event is going to tackle 4 major areas: implementing sustainable technologies to combat climate change, integrating nutritional science to boost consumer health, diversifying protein sources as mainstream options, and enhancing consumer trust through transparency and traceability in food tech. Cool stuff, right? And then if you're a member of Epicenter, we have a summer party. If you're not a member of Epicenter, you should become one so you can come to the summer party. That's going to be a fun event. But thank you all so much for coming here. I hope to see you at next week's event or the events following. Please stick around. Talk some more. Our speakers will stay throughout the rest of the evening. Grab some pizza and let's have a great time. Thank you so much.